Senator Sheldon Whitehouse just dropped a bombshell fraud claim on Todd Blanche. He said senior DOJ officials have never before faced a judicial inquiry into fraud on the court. He said a federal judge found the DOJ colluded with Trump plaintiffs, violated DOJ policies, and failed to zealously advocate for the United States. He said the fraud on the court question remains open. He asked Blanche to provide all documents and communications between the DOJ and the Trump plaintiffs. Blanche said he wasn't aware of any communications.
You say to us that you will be willing to provide all of the documents and communications between the Department of Justice and the Trump plaintiffs in that matter.
I'm not aware of any communications. I didn't have any. So if you put a request in, we'll look at it. I mean, obviously that's active, continued litigation in the Southern District of Florida.
Whitehouse said the DOJ filed nothing in response to the inquiry. He said the silence is deafening. He listed misconduct findings against DOJ attorneys. He asked about FBI Director Kash Patel. Blanche said he has full faith in Patel. Whitehouse asked about January 6th rioters. Blanche did not answer. Whitehouse yielded. Let's watch.
Let's move on to Trump versus IRS. Our research indicates that senior DOJ officials have never in the history of the department before faced a judicial inquiry into a fraud on the court participated in by the Department of Justice. That was the inquiry opened in Florida. The question about fraud on the court committed by the Department of Justice remains open in the judge's decision. Here's what she did find. She found that the Department of Justice colluded with the Trump plaintiffs, that the Department of Justice violated DOJ policies in that collusion, that department attorneys were derelict in their responsibilities as DOJ attorneys, that the department failed to zealously advocate on behalf of the United States of America, its true client, and, as I said, the fraud on the court question remains open, an unprecedented allegation about the department. As a result of that, the order was transmitted to the New York State Bar for potential disciplinary proceedings. I would like to ask, in addition, since this is new news, the decision was, 2 days ago? I would like to ask that you say to us that you will be willing to provide all of the documents and communications between the Department of Justice and the Trump plaintiffs in that matter.
I'm not aware of any communications. I didn't have any. So if you put a request in, we'll look at it. I mean, obviously that's active, continued litigation in the Southern District of Florida. So it depends on.
Explain how it is active, continued litigation in the District of Florida.
Well, there's been several indications that the parties I never entered notice of appearance, but that the parties intend to appeal the judge's Monday 56-page decision.
Well, it'll be interesting. Do you intend to appeal the Department of Justice?
We weren't really even part of that decision. So to the extent there's something that we can appeal, I very vigorously will encourage the department to do so.
Well, here's the tell. In that case, the Department of Justice filed no answer, filed no agreement with respect to the extension of time, filed no response to the case or controversy amici, filed nothing related to the withdrawal of the complaint, filed no settlement, and filed no response to the fraud on the court inquiry. To me, as a one-time litigator, that looks like really weird behavior. And when for the first time in history there's an inquiry into fraud upon the court committed by the Department of Justice, the silence from the department in response to that is deafening, Mr. Blanche, deafening. And it strikes me that the stratagem here was to file no pleadings, to try to keep the department out of the authority of the court when what the department knew to be a collusive and false enterprise was blown up in that court. Now, it didn't work because the court found collusion, and it takes two to collude. And they also went on and made the other adverse findings about the department's conduct. And the problem here, Mr. Blanche, is that it's not just that one occasion. Between judges appointed by every president harshly criticizing the department's work in your tenure, grand juries rejecting indictments, judicial findings of outright misconduct, capable lawyers fleeing the stinking ship, this seems to be the most troubled Department of Justice in history. Here are some of the misconduct findings against your U.S. attorneys. And if they haven't put it up yet, here's a word cloud of the commentary by federal judges about the conduct of your DOJ. These are red flag words that when I was a U.S. attorney would have provoked, at minimum, an internal conversation about what the hell went wrong, and very likely a conversation with OPR and maybe OPR pursuit. Words like pretext mean a lot coming from a judge about a government argument, usually enjoying the presumption of regularity. We need answers. I need you to be able to tell me that this kind of misconduct is going to stop if you're confirmed as Attorney General. Can you say that?
The Department of Justice works hard. The prosecutors work hard every day, and I appreciate the hand-picked words that you have behind you right now, but that's not reflective of the 100,000 indictments and informations that have been filed to do the work that I talked about earlier today. And so while cherry-picking a few isolated words from district court or magistrate judges in certain districts is something that you're entitled to do, it's absolutely false to suggest that this Department of Justice is not executing as we should and doing the right thing every single day.
I will tell you that you are wrong, that in the history of the department, this kind of criticism by federal judges is unprecedented, and it comes from judges of every different political persuasion. Let me ask about the FBI. How long do you intend to put up with that Kash Patel character? Are you good with his airplane jaunts? Are you confident he's not drinking on the job? Are you sure none of his travel is a pretext for vacation activities like snorkeling, Olympics, and visiting girlfriends? Are you sure he knows what he's doing? Do you vouch for him? Are you willing to look at whether he lied to this committee?
That's an extraordinarily obnoxious question, Senator, and I have full faith in Director Patel and the work that he's doing every day.
Great, you get to own that. One last thing, if I may. You have refused to exclude January 6 rioters from your anti-weaponization fund. You have refused to put in writing that the slush fund is dead. Indeed, you signal to allies that payouts are still on track. You have vacated seditious conspiracy convictions against members of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. You hired January 6 rider Jared Wise, who had urged the mob to kill police officers. You scrubbed press releases about January 6 prosecutions and called the releases partisan propaganda. You denied that Trump encouraged any violence on January 6. You've cleaned house of every attorney who worked on a case related to Trump, and you've bragged that bringing justice for violent rioters meant that every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted. I hope that our colleagues who are concerned about what happened on January 6th take that into account. Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
I would. Almost everything the senator just said, and he's protected. He's allowed to lie. But almost everything he just said was absolutely false, okay? Starting with the fact that I have never said that any sort of violence against law enforcement is appropriate. I have never said that publicly. I have never said that in a speech, and I certainly do not believe it. I did not hire the person referenced, and that is, again, something that just happens not to be true. When I talk about what happened with the convicted January 6 defendants, I talk about what President Trump did. He has the absolute right to pardon anybody for any reason he sees fit, and every one of them got pardoned or commuted. I am not celebrating that. It is a fact. And the fact that my department had to take action in response to those pardons by dismissing some cases is exactly what I have to do under the law, and it's what I did. So that the narrative that the senator just suggested and put on me as something I believe is absolutely not true.
Since he accused me of lying personally, Mr. Chairman, let me ask that I put this series of concerns into a question for the record, and that you, under oath, one by one, tell me where there's a lie.
I'm happy to do that.
We'll get that to you.
I'm happy to do that. Absolutely.
Before I go to Senator Blackburn, since oversight was brought up and responsiveness of your department, I'd like to speak about how it was with the Biden Justice Department's non-responsiveness to my oversight letters. If the Biden Justice Department would have been remotely responsive, there wouldn't be such a backlog right now. So let's not pretend for a minute the last administration was a benchmark of responsiveness, and this administration, to its credit, has been more responsive. I talked about, in my opening statement, 43,000 pages of documents that you have released compared to a lot less in the previous administration. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse just delivered a masterclass in how to expose the corruption and misconduct of the Department of Justice under Todd Blanche. He did not come with a speech. He came with questions. He came with the judge's findings. He came with the word cloud of judicial criticism, and he left no doubt about the answer. The exchange between Whitehouse and Blanche was not just a routine hearing. It was a confrontation about the fundamental question of whether the Department of Justice can be trusted to enforce the law fairly. It was about whether the DOJ will serve the public or the president. Whitehouse began by laying out the facts. He said senior DOJ officials have never before faced a judicial inquiry into fraud on the court. He said a federal judge found that the DOJ colluded with Trump plaintiffs, violated DOJ policies, and failed to zealously advocate for the United States. He said the fraud on the court question remains open. He asked Blanche to provide all documents and communications. Blanche said he wasn't aware of any communications. Whitehouse said the DOJ filed nothing in response to the inquiry. He said the silence is deafening. He listed misconduct findings against DOJ attorneys. He asked about FBI Director Kash Patel. Blanche said he has full faith in Patel. Whitehouse asked about January 6th rioters. Blanche did not answer. He said the question was obnoxious. That is not an answer. That is a deflection. The judge's findings are particularly damning. She found collusion. She found violations of DOJ policies. She found dereliction of duty. She found failure to advocate for the United States. These are not minor accusations. They are serious charges. They go to the heart of the DOJ's mission. The DOJ is supposed to enforce the law fairly. It is supposed to advocate for the United States. It is supposed to uphold the rule of law. It is not supposed to collude with plaintiffs. It is not supposed to violate its own policies. It is not supposed to fail to advocate for its true client. The DOJ has done all of these things. That is a scandal. The judge's findings are not just criticism. They are a condemnation. They are a verdict. They are a finding that the DOJ has abandoned its mission. The judge found that the DOJ colluded with Trump plaintiffs. That means the DOJ was not acting as an independent enforcer of the law. It was acting as a co-conspirator. It was helping Trump. It was not serving the American people. It was serving the president. The silence of the DOJ is also damning. The DOJ filed nothing in response to the inquiry. It filed no answer. It filed no agreement. It filed no response. It filed no settlement. It filed nothing. That is not normal. That is not acceptable. That is a cover-up. The DOJ is trying to hide its misconduct. It is trying to avoid accountability. It is trying to protect itself. Whitehouse called it out. He said the silence is deafening. He was right. The DOJ had a chance to defend itself. It chose not to. It chose to remain silent. It chose to let the judge's findings stand. That is not the behavior of an innocent party. That is the behavior of a guilty party. That is the behavior of a party that knows it has no defense. Whitehouse then turned to the word cloud. He showed a word cloud of the commentary by federal judges about the conduct of the DOJ. Words like pretext are red flags. They indicate that judges do not trust the DOJ. They indicate that the DOJ is not being honest. They indicate that the DOJ is not upholding the rule of law. Whitehouse asked Blanche to explain how this misconduct will stop if he is confirmed. Blanche did not answer. He said the DOJ works hard. He said prosecutors work hard every day. He said the word cloud is cherry-picked. He did not address the substance. He did not explain why the DOJ colluded with Trump plaintiffs. He did not explain why the DOJ violated its policies. He did not explain why the DOJ failed to advocate for the United States. He did not explain why the silence is deafening. He said the DOJ works hard. That is not an answer. That is an evasion. It is the kind of answer that a politician gives when he does not want to admit the truth. It is the kind of answer that a politician gives when he hopes the committee will move on to the next question. Whitehouse did not move on. He stayed. He pressed. He asked the questions. He did not let Blanche off the hook. Whitehouse then turned to the FBI. He asked about Kash Patel. He asked if Blanche is good with his airplane jaunts. He asked if he is confident Patel is not drinking on the job. He asked if he is sure none of Patel's travel is a pretext for vacation activities like snorkeling, Olympics, and visiting girlfriends. He asked if he is sure Patel knows what he is doing. He asked if he vouches for Patel. He asked if he is willing to look at whether Patel lied to this committee. Blanche said that is an extraordinarily obnoxious question. He said he has full faith in Patel. He did not answer the questions. He did not explain why he has full faith. He did not explain why he is confident Patel is not drinking on the job. He did not explain why he is sure Patel's travel is not a pretext. He said the question is obnoxious. That is not an answer. That is a deflection. It is the kind of answer that a politician gives when he does not want to admit the truth. It is the kind of answer that a politician gives when he wants to avoid the question. Whitehouse did not let him get away with it. He pressed. He asked the questions. He did not let Blanche off the hook. Whitehouse then listed the January 6th issues. He said Blanche refused to exclude January 6th rioters from the Anti-Weaponization Fund. He said he refused to put in writing that the Slush Fund is dead. He said he signals to allies that payouts are still on track. He said he vacated seditious conspiracy convictions against Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. He said he hired January 6th rioter Jared Wise, who urged the mob to kill police officers. He said he scrubbed press releases about January 6th prosecutions and called them partisan propaganda. He said he denied that Trump encouraged any violence on January 6th. He said he cleaned house of every attorney who worked on a case related to Trump. He said he bragged that bringing justice for violent rioters meant that every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted. Blanche did not answer. Whitehouse's argument is devastating. He showed that Blanche is protecting January 6th rioters. He showed that Blanche is rewarding them. He showed that Blanche is punishing their prosecutors. He showed that Blanche is denying the violence. He showed that Blanche is not being honest with the American people. The pattern is clear. Blanche is not a neutral enforcer of the law. He is a political operative. He is using the DOJ to protect the president and his allies. He is using it to punish the president's enemies. He is using it to cover up crimes. He is using it to reward insurrectionists. He is not fit to be Attorney General. Senator Whitehouse asked Todd Blanche to explain the DOJ's collusion with Trump plaintiffs. Blanche said he wasn't aware of any communications. Whitehouse said the DOJ filed nothing in response to the fraud inquiry. He said the silence is deafening. He asked about Kash Patel. Blanche said he has full faith in Patel. He asked about January 6th rioters. Blanche did not answer. The American people deserve better.